All right, so yeah, it's World Toilet Day. Woohoo!
As I said, I am flushed with excitement.
This is the AT Banter podcast, a balanced and entertaining look at assistive technology, accessibility, and its importance in people's lives. Join Rob Minot, Ryan Fleury, and Steve Barclay as they banter with people around the world about anything and everything regarding assistive technology and the disability community. Now, on with the show.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of AT Banter.
Banter.
My name is Rob Minot. And
No, say it isn't so.
It's so.
Alrighty then.
Joining me is Mr. Ryan Fleury.
Howdy.
Steve Barclay is not here yet,
You working?
but he will be here a little later on. And what are we doing today, Ryan?
Today we're talking with Albert Ruel, who is the coordinator of the Getting Together with Technology program for the Canadian Council of the Blind.
Yeah, what are we talking to him about?
He's an Aira explorer, so he's actually subscribed to the service and has been using it, and we're going to get his experiences.
Cool. Yeah, it's about time we actually talk to somebody who's actually on the ground using the thing. 'Cause,
Absolutely.
we've listened to a lot of the marketing materials about it, and heard a lot of secondhand experiences about it. But it'll be cool to actually talk to an actual subscriber who's been using it for a while. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. There's a lot of people wanting to know more information about it. We all keep seeing the headlines, but now we have word of mouth.
Exactly. Hey, but first, you know what?
What?
Let's do some news. All right, first news story. Cancer patient's wife says Calgary Transit Disability Access demands are humiliating.
And this headline kind of caught me off guard. Well, the headline not so much, but the word humiliating. And in the article, she goes on to say it was demeaning. And
all right, well, let me set this up. Okay. So
all right.
Demands by Calgary Transit Access to once again prove a disability to requalify for a specialized bus service are demeaning, says the wife of a city senior who lost his leg to cancer. Diana McCall says her husband Miles, whose leg was amputated in January 2017, notes that he's been using Calgary's transit pickup service for more than a year since then and has provided a doctor's letter to qualify for it. In September, however, the couple received a letter informing them his access to the shared ride service would end January 14th unless they attended an eligibility interview.
Now that's bizarre because wouldn't they have attended the eligibility meeting when he first applied for this Disability Transit Access program to find out if he's eligible in the first place? You would think so. Because you have to go in and apply. They don't just hand it out.
Well, that's an interesting way you say that because the Calgary Transit's side of the story is a little farther down, and they say while McCall does not need to renew his eligibility prior to the cutoff date, the couple has misunderstood the requirements. We need to get a photo identification, not of their disability, but their face, so the driver gets a visual who they're picking up, he said.
Right.
He said McCall's type of case would fall under the no interview category, where the service was first set up through a Calgary hospital, but now requires a qualification meeting. So that sounds like there's two aspects to this. Honestly, I don't know. I think this is a lot of a bluster and not much meat to the story. The long and the short of it is, the way that I see it is that, transit, you need to jump through some of these hoops. And that's just sort of the way of bureaucracy. It doesn't sound like the Calgary Transit's being unreasonable.
Well, it sounds like there was some misinterpreted communication.
Yeah.
The wife had assumed that they wanted a picture of his prosthetic leg, and Calgary Transit's coming back saying, no, we need a picture of his face so the driver can identify him. So it's a he said, she said type story.
Well, and also they don't understand, the fact that the hospital set it up initially and then, there's another hoop to jump through. Maybe it wasn't communicated with them. Yeah. I think that at the end of the day, the biggest sin is just miscommunication and not communicating well, and that's typical of any bureaucracy or any city transit system. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and I do think that somebody like this gentleman with a prosthetic leg, once he attends this interview meeting or this acceptance meeting, whatever it's called, he should never have to do it again. His leg's not going to heal itself and grow back. He shouldn't have to do this again. I'm totally blind. I have to reapply for a disabled parking pass every 3 to 5 years.
Right.
My eyes aren't going to come back. Why do I need to do that? I think there needs to be some new guidelines, but I don't know where you draw that line.
But honestly, I disagree with that. I mean, look, it's a bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they need to sort of
money.
No, it's not about money necessarily. It's about the paperwork. They have to keep things on track, and sometimes you gotta re-up your paperwork, and that's just honestly, going into one meeting or filling out a couple sets of forms every 3 to 5 years to get these services, I don't think is asking too much. That's my opinion anyways. I guess
it really depends. If we read the entire story of this gentleman, he's unable to climb stairs. He has some cognitive disabilities as well. So it's more than just a prosthetic leg. So if he was living on his own independently, it might be a little bit more difficult to get in and get these forms filled out. Not to say impossible, but it may be more difficult. So it's one, what's the word? One broad stroke doesn't encompass all people with disabilities, right?
No, and it sounds like the biggest point of contention is that they don't want to have to go into a physical interview.
Yeah.
Because it's a big deal for them to obviously to get around and to make it all the way down there. I think is really the biggest problem, because he's not really super mobile.
Well, then let's use technology that's available today, like FaceTime, Skype.
Oh, you'd think
Hangouts,
so. You'd think so. But honestly, and it's hard to say, because whenever one of these stories hits the media, transit's going to act a very different way as if, behind closed doors, they may not have been nearly this accommodating.
Right.
So who knows?
Well, let's go into the next story, because that one gets interesting as well.
But yeah, at the end of the day, I think that these stories are good to come out. I think that it's always positive when issues like this, get brought to the forefront, even if at the end of the day, I think that this is just a case of misunderstanding, and that both sides can just maybe give a little, and everybody can get what they need without too much effort. So
sounds good to me.
I don't know what
they'll work it out.
So I don't know. I guess we'll keep our eyes peeled and see if there's any more to this story down the road. But hey, there's something else going on in Toronto too.
There is. This is a Canadian week.
Yeah, so this is a big one too. This is another social media.
Well, it shouldn't have gotten big, but it did.
So, headline is accessibility debate heats up on Toronto restaurant's Instagram page.
Now, just to fill in a little bit here, I did try to find this restaurant's Instagram feed to find out what social media was ranting about, and I couldn't find it.
Oh, really?
I found his page, but it was talking about menus and their hours and stuff like that. Yeah, so I must have been in the wrong place, but I'll let you fill in the story.
Sure. Details. Well, it's the controversy is around a restaurant called Sugo in Toronto, and basically what happened is a fellow named Chris Stygus,
who's in a wheelchair, I believe. Who is
in a wheelchair. He basically just posted to Sugo's Instagram page asking, "Are you guys wheelchair accessible?"
Yep. Honest question. I don't see any problem with that.
Yep. The restaurant came back, said, no, not really. We've had a couple of chairs in, but we have a step, and it's a very small place.
And there's steps leading into their bathroom as well.
Yes. And which then generated apparently an avalanche of Instagram comments of people saying that...
slamming the restaurant, saying that by law, they have to be accessible.
That's right. Now, here's where things
fell apart.
Here's where the restaurant made their fatal mistake is they started arguing with the people on the internet. You never want to argue with people on the internet, BTW. But they came back and said, yeah, actually, no, we're not required to be accessible. And that just got the internet fired up even more. And just a huge bit of a flame war. Of course, the media got a hold of it.
You know, people online hiding behind their computers can be so quick to start throwing judgments around without doing any research whatsoever. You know, so it's easy to be a bully when you're sitting behind a computer.
Okay,
keyboard,
well, I don't
right?
see. I don't know if I quite see it like that. I don't know that these.
I'm not saying the
people
restaurant
were,
owner was right in the way he treated this, but
Well, yeah, I have a couple different opinions. I mean, on the one hand, yeah, I'm with you. I don't think that it deserved the restaurant necessarily deserved to be flamed, but at the same time, I think that we should call out lack of accessibility where we can. Now, it's right. It's not the restaurant's fault. He isn't legally obligated to have an accessible space.
well, how many spaces?
I don't agree with that policy in general, because I happen to think that all public spaces should be accessible.
Right, but if let's say you're somebody interested in looking for office space, you know, you find an office space, it's in a great location. Probably the last thing in your mind is, can I get a wheelchair in here? You're not thinking about accessibility, and you know that building might have been built in the 1980s when accessibility wasn't at the forefront of people's minds. So right off the bat, you're not accessible. And it's going to take money to become accessible. Not to say business owners shouldn't be investing in accessibility. They should be.
Well, and that's okay. And this is where, this is where the problem lies. Because should small business owners, because you know there's video attached to this article, and I watched the news piece on it. And it was interesting, you know, they talked to the restaurant owner, and he's a young guy. He's a small restaurant business owner, just trying to do his best. You know, should he have to spend money making his space accessible? The answer to that, right or wrong, at the moment, legally, is no.
Right.
He's definitely not on the hook. You know, would it be a good idea? Maybe. You know, I mean, having an accessible restaurant only makes your business better.
It allows more consumers to take advantage of what you're offering. Absolutely.
Now, and there was footage of inside the restaurant and of these steps, Ryan. And let me tell you, it's literally one step into like literally, it would probably take $50 worth of materials from Home Depot.
Well, that's what the guy said in the news article attached to
build a ramp. It's one step.
Yeah.
It's not like this thing is at the top of like 50 steps.
Right.
It's literally one step into the restaurant.
Yeah.
And the bathroom inside, same thing. It's literally one step. So
and that's what the reporter in the video said. There are economical and even free ways to make accommodations. You know, not necessarily, you know, tearing down walls and putting new walls up and widening door spaces and stuff like that. But there are things business owners can do to make accommodations.
Well, and here's the problem with this particular restaurant, though. And I've been in restaurants like this here. You know, it is a small space, and the way that they've got the tables, there's literally no space between that you could get a chair.
Right.
In between the way that they have the tables set up. So in order to make that space accessible, it would cost him money, because he would have to take out a couple tables out of that restaurant, which means, you know, less tables means less people being able to be, you know, seated per hour. You know, that's going to hurt his bottom line just to make that space accessible. So, you know, I do feel for the guy.
Absolutely. And he did agree to meet with the guy who made the initial request.
Oh, he did. You know, he offered to make him a plate of pasta and send it to him.
Well,
I mean,
he did agree to meet with him as well and talk about it.
You know, I think that at the end of the day, again, it's, you know, it's social media. It's just such a
it can be very bitter.
It's such a battleground, and sometimes it's to the detriment of the actual cause, because it makes people feel like accessibility is is a negative thing. It's like, oh God, someone's going to be screaming at me to make my space accessible. And it's a very negative, becomes a bit of a negative experience. And it shouldn't be. It should be a conversation about, look, let's try to accommodate everybody in these public spaces.
I don't know if anybody commented on it, but further down in that news article, they talk about half of the subway stations in Toronto aren't accessible. So who's got more money to incorporate accessibility into their infrastructure? The Toronto City and their SkyTrain system, or this one-man restaurant who's a chef and a cook?
See, that's crazy.
Like, who are we screaming at, or who should we be screaming at? Half the SkyTrain stations in Toronto aren't accessible. Some don't have elevators.
Yeah.
Come
right.
on, let's leave the business owner alone, the little restaurant guy who's trying to make a living. And let's go after the city who's accumulating billions of dollars, tax dollars every year on building new roads and infrastructure. And let's focus on where the focus needs to be. Let's get our priorities straight.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, and again, the reason why I love seeing stories like this is because it's bringing the accessibility conversation to the forefront. Yeah. People need to be aware that accessibility is a big deal. Like, just think about being in a chair and being like, okay, well, I want to go out for dinner, but I don't even know where I can go. I don't, when I pick a restaurant, I have to go through all these hoops to figure out, okay, is it accessible? How do I get there? Can I get there? Can I get there? Is it going to take me through a transit station that actually isn't even accessible? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many of these problems that people with mobility issues have to face on a daily basis because, the city doesn't have their shit together in making public spaces accessible, and that needs to be a priority. And
maybe, and we'll have to get somebody on to talk about this, but maybe the whole Disability Act in Canada, encompasses some of that. I'll have to do a little digging and see if we can get somebody on, because I would hope that some of that, infrastructure is going to be in place in this Disabilities Act. Ontario has one. So. I'm not sure what it includes. But I think there was a mention in that news article about somebody mentioned that they don't think it's realistic to have all places accessible by 2025. And I don't know what that was referencing. If that was referencing the Disabilities Act or if it was something else. But there was reference to that. And you can edit this part out if you want. Mm-hmm. But it'll be interesting. That's my plan for next year.
Yeah, well... Yeah, it really is. There's no easy answer to it because, like I said, I do, I feel for small business owners, making your space accessible, it can cost you a lot. Both, an initial investment and, in the case of this restaurant, their bottom line, how much they're able to generate per hour, because if they have to pull tables out mm-hmm. to make the space accessible. That's
fewer customers.
It's going to be fewer customers, and it's going to be, it's going to hurt them.
Just to throw another quick story in, I don't know if you saw this last week, but there's a strip mall in Surrey, who one of the business owners in that strip mall is wanting to remove their wheelchair ramp to make room for a couple more parking spots.
Really? I did not hear this.
Yeah, and he can't just remove the ramp, which he was planning to do. He actually has to apply to the city to have, and make an argument to have that ramp removed and allow for more parking spots. So, there are things people need to do and can do, and are required to do. You can't just, rip out a ramp and, make more parking spots. There's a system in place that needs to be followed, a procedure in place. And, we'll keep an eye on that one as well, because, the city may come back and say, well, no, accessibility is huge. We want to be inclusive to everybody. So no, we're not going to put in 2 more parking spots.
Yeah,
we're going to keep the ramp. So, accessibility is a hot topic and is going to continue to be.
Yeah, I guess, but it shouldn't be a hot topic. That's the thing. It shouldn't be a controversial topic. It should be like, hello, just
do it.
It's something that needs to happen. Like, sorry if it's inconvenient, but you know what? So's being in a chair.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, like we need to accommodate everybody. Sorry, but that's just what needs to happen. And there's going to be some growing pains as we grow into it. But,
Yeah.
you know, my vision of utopia isn't going to be easy to get to. Sorry, but... Okay, well, before we get to Albert, let's have a little quick commercial message. Canadian Assistive Technology. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's a great company.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right here.
Love those guys.
Where the heck?
Yeah, where would you find those guys?
Well, all of them are in this room right now.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's right. If a meteor hit this house, that would be it.
Boom goes Canadian Assistive Technologies.
Done.
Well,
We really all shouldn't be at the same place at the same time. I'm just saying.
Canadian Assistive Technologies, that's that company that specializes in accessibility, including stuff for low vision and blindness, physical disabilities, all kinds of neat gadgetry. That can be found at www.canasstech.com. That's spelled exactly the way you'd think it would be.
And Canada, there's no.
It's Canadian Assistive Technology.
No, I
No,
agree.
he's going to say
I was gonna-
Chaos Technical Services.
You think he was going to say that?
I think so.
I bet
Putting
you know
words in
you're
my
probably right. You're probably right on that. So that Chaos Technical Services, then that's those guys who repair stuff.
Yep, that would be Mr. Rick Chant.
They fix things, and anything that's assistive technology and broke should go to those guys, and they can be found at chaostechnicalservices.com, which honestly, that's just too long.
Yep.
But it is spelled exactly the way you think. And you can also get them by email at chaos, CHAOS, tech, TECH, at shaw, SHAW.ca.
Anything you can fix, he can fix better.
That's for sure. I can't even fix. My towel rack at home broke.
Your TV's still crooked.
Let's wrap this up so I can go fix myself
All
a
right.
drink.
Okay. Yeah.
Joining us now is Albert Ruel, who is the coordinator of the Getting Together with Technology program of the Canadian Council of the Blind.
Woo! Happy to be here. Thank you, guys.
I think
Sounds like it'll be fun.
I think that calls for cowbell. There we go.
Cowbell intro.
Speaking of ding dongs, hey?
All right. Well, we've covered. What is a World Toilet Day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who comes up with is there somebody in a room somewhere that's just like, listen, we need something for every day, so
Yeah.
just come
Probably.
up with something. Who came up with Talk Like a Pirate Day?
No idea.
Like I don't know. Yeah, it's somebody somewhere.
Yep.
Okay.
I bet you anything. World Toilet Day was the guy who came up with it was John P. Crapper.
Well, we know about him. He's the actual inventor of the toilet.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
Okay, no, he's not. Apparently, I'm getting what? Really? I thought he was.
No, it's
What did he do?
It's an old wives' tale. Hang on, hey.
Call me an old wife. How dare you?
Hey, who invented the toilet?
You're right. Apparently you're right. Welcome to the show, Albert. This is pretty much what the show is.
It's a bunch of crap.
And banter.
And banter.
Yeah,
Exactly.
clearly.
Yeah.
Okay, let's dig down. Let's talk something serious now.
Well, Albert is a person who has subscribed to the Aira service, and I understand they are called Explorers. Now, we've had Aira on the show talking about the service and what the service is, but I wanted to get somebody on the show from Canada who we know who could give us an unbiased, review of the service, and that is why he is here.
Well, there you have it. Unbiased. Let me think.
Unbiased.
Can I get there?
Are you unbiased?
You can have your own biases.
That's right.
fine.
Well, in actual fact, and I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to the brief podcast that we did
Yep.
when I presented this to the GTT New Westminster group. And the way I when I talk about this thing with others, I like to sort of compare and contrast it with the Be My Eyes free app and service are both free because it's volunteers who answer the call.
Right.
And just from my own perspective, you guys, what really, after 30 years of blindness, after 30 years of using a white cane and having virtually no access to visual information, I've developed a whole lot of strategies and techniques and devices to help along the way. And when all of a sudden you have easy and immediate access to visual information at your fingertips, it has taken me quite a while to start to shift my mindset back to, oh, this visual information is available to me. I don't have to wait or ignore it or, carry on without it. And so that's been a really huge revelation for me, is having to shift my mind and start thinking back to the days when, if I wanted visual information, I just had to open my eyes and look.
Well, that's just it. We've had so many different ways of labeling, cans or items around the house, from, little bump-ons to braille stickers to pen friends, and now technology with apps is enabling us to, regain kind of a second sight.
Exactly. Or my favorite strategy when I lived on my own, I used to only buy canned vegetables that I liked. I kept them all on one shelf, and I didn't care if they were labeled. And so I'd pull out a pork chop and throw it in the frying pan. I'd pull out a tin can of veggies, and I'd pop the thing open, have a little sniff, and say, yellow beans, my favorite. But now I can actually read the label and decide if I want it's beans or peas.
Ryan, why don't we step back for just a second, and just in case there's people listening who actually don't know what the Aira service is or how it works, can we just give a real quick synopsis of the service?
Aira is a service that has trained agents who assist users of the service who are using an app on a smartphone or a pair of glasses that Aira has called Horizon, to allow a blind or visually impaired person to, again, see things or identify items or objects in their environment.
Yeah. So, so somebody who's, say, visually impaired would subscribe to the Aira service, and they would either have an app on their phone that can access the phone camera, or they would have a pair of smart glasses that they'd be able to wear. And so if they were out somewhere and needed some sort of sighted assistance, they'd be able to just call into Aira. It would connect to a sighted, trained agent who would then be able to use the camera to tell people about the surroundings, and they'd be able to tell them about obstacles or or what canned vegetable they have in their hand or anything like that.
Yeah. And there's actually, when you talk about cameras, you guys, there's actually three sort of ways you can do it. If you have a lot of data, or if you're primarily using your service while connected to Wi-Fi in your own home or at work or whatever, then the camera on your smartphone can be utilized. And I often use that when I'm here at home, rather than fire up the glasses and fire up the little Wi-Fi device. I just simply haul out the camera and make a call, or haul up my iPhone and just make a call from the phone and point that camera to whatever it is I need. The glasses, you mentioned the Horizon glasses, Ryan. That is and there's been a very recent change in the pricing structure, and so on. And so the Horizon glasses now you can purchase. You can either, when you subscribe, you can either add $25 per month. And when we discuss these prices, guys, we're always going to be talking about American prices.
Okay.
So they fluctuate in Canada month to month. So for $25 a month, you can add the Horizon glasses to your subscription instead of the Austria glasses. And or you can pay, I think it's $600 US up front, and then you own those glasses. They're yours. But the Horizon glasses are connected to a Verizon phone. So it's a bit of a different kind of system, but apparently, some of the better features of the Horizon glasses is that the camera is in the middle between, you're wearing a pair of glasses still, but the camera is in the center.
Right.
And there's another additional feature in there called Chloe, which is a little bit like the OrCam. You can take a picture of text and just have Chloe read it to you rather than making a call to an agent.
Interesting.
And some of those sorts of things. You can talk to Chloe. You can have her raise the volume, lower the volume, make a call. So there's a bunch of sort of hands-free functionality with Chloe as well, it sounds like.
Cool.
Now,
and then I'll just run through the last one. And the glasses that I had is called the Austria glasses, which is I think it's essentially the Google glasses, but it's just a pair of plastic sunglasses, or the lenses are just plastic, slightly shaded, and the camera is attached to the right arm, the arm on the right hand side of the glasses. So for me, my struggle has been pointing my face to what I'm looking for, and they're always telling me look down and look to the left. So apparently, having to point this camera at the actual item you're trying to have them describe is not the same as what I'm used to doing when I just point my face at somebody that I'm talking to.
Right.
But anyway, so those glasses connect through a little MiFi device that you also carry, and all of that connects to the AT&T system in the U.S. And here in Canada, it's of course through Rogers. So Rogers Mobile into the AT&T system, and that's what sends the video feed to the agent when they answer your call.
So the big question I have about this service is, there's the Be My Eyes service, there's the Aira service. The big difference that's touted between them is training the agents, right? So having used both systems, does it make that big a difference that the agents are trained?
Yes. I do an awful lot of traveling on my own all over the place, and have done for the 30 years I've been without sight. And when you get a sighted guide who understands the process and understands the kind of information and when it's needed, is vastly different than the people who run you into door jams because they didn't get that. They're now so significantly wider than they used to be with this blind guy on their elbow. And it does make a huge difference. I mean, I've got scars on my forehead and on my knuckles from door jams and posts and different things. So training is really an important factor. And it's, if you've ever watched a movie without descriptive video and then go back and watch the same one with descriptive video, there's a vast difference in how much information you get to see in your world. And that's part of their training, is how to find the important bits, deliver them quickly and succinctly with really good and clear language. And so, yeah, I've certainly haven't used Be My Eyes a lot. And the volunteers I have found with Be My Eyes have been very good. But boy, there's a big difference in terms of training.
Well, one of the other things I've heard too with Aira anyway, is that, if you're calling on a regular basis and you have to, feel like you're developing a rapport with an agent, you can request that same agent.
I think there's some, I haven't tried that, Ryan. I think there is some limited ability to do some of that. And yet your profile, the minute your call comes onto their computer screen, your dashboard pops up. Right. So your preferences, your likes and dislikes, your needs and that sort of thing are just quickly captured there.
Right.
And that information is available to the agent immediately. So one of the first things they do when they interview you is, how do you want to hear information? You want to hear it all? Do you want to hear very little except what you ask for? And you sort of rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. and you can always adjust that. As you're going through something, you can ask more questions. What the heck, we're just wandering down the road here. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what's going on around us?
Mm-hmm.
Or, ask for less information. So all of that stuff, it's part of a dynamic interaction with a human being who is very interested and well trained to provide you whatever it is you need. So within reason, just ask for what you want.
Well, we've certainly talked a lot about the implications of Aira, and certainly I can see a real value behind the service for people like yourself who do travel a lot. In fact, to me, intuitively, I would think that that's kind of where the most use would be. I would think that around the home, if you literally have to go to your pantry and you want to pull out a can and you're not sure what it is, I would think that something like a free service like Be My Eyes would be a good fit as opposed to going through, Aira. What's your take on that?
I think I agree with you. And one of the things I think you'll see in the Be My Eyes website and in the sign up procedure is they'll give you a warning. The volunteers have not been trained, so be careful what you provide.
Yeah.
Don't take your bank statement and have them read that to you, perhaps.
Right.
If you need to know your visa number, it may or may not be wise to call a volunteer. But with an Aira agent, they're trained. They sign confidentiality and privacy agreements with their employer. I have a contractual relationship with the employer. I'm paying them to provide me a service and to provide it in a private and confidential way. So if something does go awry, I have that contractual relationship to fall back on. And so for me, it's that. Certainly, if you want to identify 2 cans in your pantry, that's pretty harmless. But if you're wanting to do something more, that requires more privacy and confidentiality, then certainly I would trust Aira a lot further than I would unknown volunteers. And let me tell you, while I was doing a presentation at the GTT Campbell River meeting last month, one of the people in the room, a sighted person who comes in and does some volunteer work with us at GTT, he decided he would sign up as a volunteer with Be My Eyes, and it took him 10 minutes.
Wow.
And he was signed up. They show him a 3-minute video if he wants to view it, and then that's it. He was done.
Wow.
That's all the training he got. And they said, expect your first call in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And he started that process and finished it in about 10 minutes while the meeting was going on.
Well, I think that there's certainly a place for both services.
Absolutely.
For our big concern when we started really talking about Aira, at least here in Canada, is the data caps. The cell phone plans here in Canada are a lot more restrictive, from what I understand, than the plans in the U.S. So the idea that if you're using Aira on a regular basis and you're transmitting, video data over your phone, you could hit your data cap relatively quickly, which is going to result in again, more charges for people who may be visually impaired, who they're already paying for the Aira service. How have you found that? Or what's the bandwidth been like as a regular Aira user for you?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that, because this is an important point to clarify. If I'm using my iPhone camera, I'm using my data. If I'm not connected to Wi-Fi, so if I'm out on the street and I'm using my iPhone, that's the only time I use my data. And what I've found is that about an hour of call time with Aira using my iPhone uses about 1 gigabyte, just under a gigabyte of my data. I have 5.5 gigs of data on my plan.
Right.
But when you're using the Austria glasses or the Horizon glasses, you're not using your data.
Oh, okay.
All of that is part of what you've paid for in your monthly subscription. So you're making a video call using the glasses. It goes through the MiFi. That's already covered. The only thing you're doing from your iPhone is making a voice over IP telephone call. Okay, so my voice over IP call from my iPhone connects with what the glasses have sent them. That connects in the computer when the agent takes your call. Those two things come together then. And so the data usage, if one is careful, just don't use your iPhone unless you're sitting in a Wi-Fi zone where you've got a good Wi-Fi connectivity.
Sure.
Use the glasses, and it won't cost you anything more.
So, and just to clarify, so the glasses need to be connected through a Wi-Fi connection, or no?
They have a little Wi-Fi AT&T box that you get, and that's what the glasses connect to, and then that ties into the Rogers AT&T network. That's
correct. So what I do when I'm going to fire up, I pull out the little MiFi device and I press the power button. I think I hold it for about 5 or 6 seconds. Once I'm sort of comfortable that that thing has connected, and it doesn't talk to us. So, there is something on the screen, but we don't have access to it. And then you press the power button on the glasses. Those things take 20 or 30 seconds to connect. And then there's a speech component in the Austria glasses that tell you when it's connected to the MiFi device. And then it'll say Aira ready for service. Then you pull out your iPhone and make your phone call. And there's 2 choices on the Aira app. You can either make a call through the glasses or make a call through the iPhone. And if you're connecting with the glasses, you would select the first one, make a call with the glasses, and then the phone starts ringing as soon as you tap the connect button.
Now, in general, how many times a day do you find you're using the service now that you're sort of a regular user?
I don't know that it depends where I am and what I'm doing. I don't necessarily use it every day. I haven't used it in the last couple of days. When did I last use it? I was in Victoria. Yeah, I mean, it depends. Yeah, here at home, I don't tend to use it all that much. I use it to do my expenses, for example. After a trip, I've got a pocket full of all these little expense slips. So what I'll do is I'll set myself up. I get all my expenses set up on the table. Make sure that I've got a placemat that contrasts with the paper, and I just sit down at the dining room table and I call the agent and I ask them, if we can go through all of my receipts. They get me to either turn it around, turn it over until they can see the print and it's right side up, and they'll tell me what the receipt is, the date on it, and the amount. And then I direct them to take a photo of it, and then I ask them to name the photo. Pardon me. I ask them to name the photo. So, for example, it might say Oceanside Taxi, October 22nd. The amount was $10.32. And so they'll put the amount in the notes field. They'll put the date and the name of the company in the file name field, and then that gets saved to my inbox in the Aira app, so that when I do actually do my expense report, all I have to do is go pull these photos of the receipts into the app I use, and it's all nice and clean and well labeled.
Right.
Otherwise, I used to try and do that with a scanner, and it would take forever, and you get very poor renditions of it. But here you're using someone who can quickly spot the information you need, provide exactly what you need, and I can provide a photo of the receipt for the accountant. It works really, really slick.
And I imagine part of that is that, you've been living for years and years and years, obviously, without the Aira service. So you've sort of built,
systems in place.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't necessarily need Aira for that.
Well, what I'm finding is where Aira can help me do it more quickly, more efficiently, so that I can move on to other things, like this expense thing. I used to spend the entire afternoon doing my expenses. Now it's done in 24 minutes.
Right.
And that's with quite a long list. If I've only got 3 or 4 items, gosh, it's 5 minutes and we're done. And yeah, no, it's done very quickly now, and so that I'm not spending 2 and 3 hours going through all of this nightmare stuff I used to go through. Other things that I used to avoid, I don't avoid anymore. Like I used to contact BC Ferries, make arrangements for somebody to meet me at the counter. And even at that, I'd have to recruit a sighted person to help me get from the bus, into the ferry terminal and find the ticket wicket. Now, the minute I step out of the bus, I'm making a call to an agent, and they get me from where the bus dropped me off into the building, right up to the till. Once I purchase my ticket, I carry on down through the door and down that long hallway to the waiting room. It's all done with absolute ease. And without any of that stuff that we go through, I mean, my partner is sighted, so certainly I can wander down the hall and ask her, what's on this piece of paper? What's, my computer's not talking to me. Can you tell me what's going on? And every single time I have to do that, or I choose to do that, and she's always willing to do it, and yet she's never just sitting there tapping her toes waiting for me to come around the corner to ask her another visual question. She always has to stop whatever she's doing, whether that's having a nap, knitting a sweater, enjoying a quiet cup of coffee. She always has to stop what she's doing to come and provide me the visual assistance I'm requiring. These guys, and so I walk in with a bit of that guilt. Have you got a minute to come and help me with this, please?
Sure.
So there's she's not providing any of that guilt. That's just stuff I'm doing in my own head. But I always ask those questions with a bit of that guilt. This service erases all of that. It says, oh, wait a minute. I'm paying them to provide this service. They're happy to answer the call. And so I'm not stopping them from whatever they're doing.
Sure.
They're willing. And it's the same with the BC Ferries. I mean, when I show up at the counter and I ask them for help, they'll sort of look around a little bit and, well, here, hang on a minute. Let me make a quick phone call and see if I can get somebody to help you. And only once have I ever been refused, but they're always, there's always that, oh dear, well, okay, let's see if we can do something. And so that stuff does sort of eat at my guts a little bit. With Aira, that's all gone. I can just pop into a quick phone call. April, I need to get into the ferry terminal. The building's right across this roadway. Can you give me a hand with that? And off we go.
All right. So I'm gonna put on my devil's advocate horns here for a minute, just for the sake of a conversation. But let me ask the room this. So, it's a very different thing, I think, for you to be using the Aira service, being that you've spent, a lifetime building all kinds of different skills to overcome, different hurdles. Say for a younger person, and say Aira does become, ubiquitous. It's just, everywhere. So do you think for a younger visually impaired kid who has the Aira service, do you think that there's a chance that it might actually deter them from actually building some of these really useful skills, because they'll just be able to connect to an Aira agent and solve their problem that way, rather than building strategies and learning how to build different strategies?
That's an interesting thought. I mean, I don't use Aira just to walk down the street, because I've got cane skills and my hearing is good, and I use the skills I have to get from point A to point B. Now I might use it, like on Douglas Street in downtown Victoria, where it's chock-a-block full of people and there's buses coming and going. And so in a situation like that, I might use it. But I don't tend to use it where I already have the skills to get there. Where I did use it once on Douglas Street was at I don't know if any of you know the intersection of Douglas and Brudette/Humboldt, kind of a 5-way little intersection there. Yep. So when you're on the east side of Douglas, you don't just go straight across. You can't just keep your line as you're coming down the sidewalk. You have to angle off to the left, this weird little angle to catch the island in the middle, and then you have to angle off to the right to make your way across Humboldt Street. And that one's it's always been an intersection that has concerned me. So I had an agent on the line, and they're not. Here's the thing too, Rob. They're not allowed to talk to us while we're in the street. They're not allowed to tell us that it's safe to cross the street. The only thing they can do is provide me the visual information I need. So they're not going to tell me there's nobody coming, go ahead. They're going to say the walk sign says don't walk. They're going to tell me it's a stop sign intersection. So I still have to use all of my skills to actually make the crossing. But what they can do is help me line up. So I'll turn my body and I'll say, okay, am I lined up with the crosswalk? And they'll say, yes, you are. And then I'll ask them, so what does the walk sign say? And they'll say it says don't walk. But when it changes, they'll say the walk sign says walk. Then I'll listen for traffic and I'll carry on. So it's not going to replace the blindness skills that we learn, but they'll help us gather the visual information that we need.
I see that. That makes sense.
Yeah. The other thing we talked about at the beginning of the show or before the show about finding washrooms as a blind person. They'll help me find a washroom, but they're not allowed to come in with me. So once I get to the door, the Aira app has a privacy button. And so I activate the privacy button, which puts on hold both the video and the audio feeds. But at least, they have helped me get to the washroom door and the correct one. And so that, but in terms of the skills, yeah, I mean, certainly there are people who use it differently, and that's the beauty of the human condition.
Right.
I've heard of one lady who had a book on her bookshelf that she wanted to read for years, and she doesn't have it in an alternative format. She actually used her Aira minutes to read that book. Wow. Now, I wouldn't choose to do that, but, that's something she chose to do.
Sure.
One individual, decided that she would use Aira to decorate her house for Halloween. She always has to recruit sighted help to do that kind of stuff. This year, now that she's an Aira Explorer, she used her time to do that.
Well, and I think that's the important thing, to take away is that it, like you say, people are using it for whatever their requirements are, whether it's decorating for Halloween or Christmas, or maybe looking up a recipe, or identifying photos or doing your receipts. There's no limit to what you could use the Aira service for. You just have to start using the Aira service.
Exactly. And just find ways, try it out. Does this fit? Does this feel good? Does this give me the freedom and the independence and the efficiency I'm looking for so that I can move on to other things? Right. I mean, I haven't done it yet, you guys, but I'm going to try it out in the workshop. Because I have purchased 2 talking tape measures. I still, even though I don't have any vision, I still use, radial arm saw and routers and those kinds of things out in the shop to build stuff. But getting an accurate measurement is my biggest limitation. And I've purchased 2 of these talking tape measures, and I can tell you guys, they're made of plastic, and they'll bounce across the concrete floor about 4 times before they cease functioning. And they are $150 each. Ouch. So I've got a $300 investment out there that won't say a doggone thing to me. So I'm tempted, one of these days when I get back out there in the garage and start putzing with my projects, I'm going to see how well it'll work, having them help me line up my, my cut so that I can cut things accurately. So I haven't tried that yet. I know whenever I fire up the saws, my partner Brenda runs like heck. She leaves the room. She doesn't want to be there.
Yeah. We have we have the same reaction when Steve fires up power tools.
Yeah.
Well, there's that. I mean, my sighted father and brothers, were missing fingertips and things. I still have all of mine, so I'm good to go.
Knock on wood.
But and the other just lineups are another one of those nightmares too. You guys, like, try and find the lineup in the Starbucks or Timmy's or wherever.
Oh yeah.
And then I'm constantly tapping people on the ankle to see, have they moved yet?
Right.
Where are they? Which way did they go? But with the Aira agent, that whole queue thing is so much easier and stress-free, because when the person moves in front of you, she'll say, he or she will say, okay, move ahead, okay, stop. And I was able to get through a coffee lineup at the BC Ferry Terminal at Tsawwassen the first time I tried this, and I never tapped anybody in the ankle. I could hear the person at the counter, the order taker, and she told me when the last person moved away from the counter, and she said, okay, it's your turn. I stepped ahead, turned left, and placed my order. It was magical to be able to do that, and it's actually something I've often avoided. I've always been nervous about carrying a hot cup of coffee in amongst people.
Sure.
But that day, with the Aira agent in tow, I felt, every confidence that I'd be able to do it without having to trip over a little one or spill my coffee on somebody. And that was a really liberating, really freeing activity that day. And also on that same sort of trip, I hadn't realized how much information is around us as we're sort of wandering through the world. But, just walking along, headed for the waiting area, she was describing and explaining things that are around us. To your right, there's a huge windows overlooking, a large car park with, many, many vehicles parked there. She's reading signs, up above and to your left, there's a sign that says, blah, 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 and quack, quack, quack. It was really freeing and liberating to be able to just sort of wander through, focus on what my cane's telling me, listen to the footsteps around me, and then have her, sort of tell me, okay, sidestep a little left, there's a door coming up, that kind of thing. They're giving you really good, clean, quick visual information that you can use to make decisions or just simply enjoy your walk.
Do you ever want to mess with the agents?
Steve, I'm going to take that under advisement. I haven't yet, but there's time.
Spray Brenda down with a bunch of ketchup and then have her lay still and call them up and say, does she look dead to you?
Jeez.
Oh my God! I wonder if anybody's tried that. I should be first. Oh my!
Would you help me compose my my murder confession?
I need you to look up how to dispose of a body.
Oh my! You guys would have way too much fun with these people.
Is one of these bags marked lime?
But one of the statements I've often used is, to make a short story long, give it to Albert.
Yeah.
And I called up one day because I was tweaking my resume for a little project that I was doing, and I showed up with this 8-page document that I had put absolutely everything, including my foot size, in there. And she started looking at this thing, and she's actually a professional. She works. One of her jobs is she helps servicemen in the U.S. when they leave the services, get back out into the workforce and into society. And so this is one of her expertise. Anyway, she managed to pare that thing down to, really fine-tuned and from 8 pages down to 3, and only the relevant information. So it was really helpful to have her, because I simply called her to get her to help me make it visually appealing. And she helped it make it appealing in all sorts of ways. So lots of great expertise, lots of great information, but messing with them.
Yeah, well, leave it to Steve to come up with that question.
Yeah. Can you help me write my suicide note?
Yeah.
No, I think that'll prompt another call, but I think I'll avoid that.
Yeah, just go up about 20 stories in a building and stick the camera out the window and go, does this fall look like it would kill me?
High enough?
You guys are nuts.
Dark.
But
it's a Monday.
I must think about this more.
Well, let me ask you this then. What's the reaction, from your vantage point, what's the reaction been like in the community for people that you know and you interact with on a regular basis that have the service as well? Has pretty much everybody pretty happy with it as you are?
I think so, and yet the cost, I think, is the biggest.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that
prohibitive factor.
Sure.
People are understanding how brilliantly this can work, and they see, because all of us who are blind, we're constantly asking for visual information from the people around us, or we go through our lives frustrated that we can't have access to it because there's nobody around. And so everybody gets it, everybody sees it, and then they look at the cost and think, oh, geez, no.
Right.
And so, my coaching, Rob, is always, if you're not sure, if you think this could be helpful for you, then start by using Be My Eye. Because the first thing we have to shift is our mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I have to get out of this notion that, forget it, I'll just do it without that info, or I'll just fake my way through it. You don't have to do that anymore if you don't want to. So start to shift your mindset by finding ways to use Be My Eyes. And then, because if this thing gets important enough in your life, if that efficiency, if that reduced stress, if the less avoidance starts to happen in your life, for me, it gives me a little spring in my step, and it brings more joy to my life. And so if you start to notice that happening, then perhaps you'll also start to find ways to fit this into your budget. Because, let's face it, I was a sighted person for the first 21 years of my life. I drove a vehicle for 6 years. And so if I was sighted today, there'd be a vehicle sitting out in the driveway.
Right.
No doubt about it. I would find some way of affording the cost of operating a motor vehicle. And so what I do now as a blind person, I find ways to get to where I need to be anyway. And it might cost me, the cost of a taxi. In my case with Aira, it's the cost of Aira every month, because it's important to me.
Sure.
Rather than sit around waiting for somebody to come along, it's important for me to be able to get on and get it done. And so it's a cost I'm willing to bear to a limit. Of course, it's not endless.
What has the feedback been from the GTD groups you've demonstrated this to?
Well, so far of the people I've sort of introduced to it, there's 2 of them have signed on. And lots of them, one gal said, "Oh my God, you mean I can organize my spice cupboard?" Because she's not enjoyed asking family for that help because of the sort of the grudging way that it's sometimes provided reluctantly.
Yep.
So she was really thrilled that she'd be able to actually, there's something. She's going to start out by using Be My Eyes, but I can actually call up somebody and they'll help me with this willingly, gladly. And so she was pretty excited about it. But the cost certainly is one of the big factors. People living on a limited income are going to have a tough time with it.
Sure. Well, and let's talk a little bit about the cost, because they just recently changed them. What are the plans, if you're familiar with that?
There are essentially 3 plans, and I don't remember exactly what they're called. But the first one is $29 per month for 30 minutes per month.
Right. Okay.
Okay, and that one, you get the Austria glasses. If you add $25 a month, then you can have the Horizon glasses. You can't share those minutes.
Right.
Okay, and then the next one is 120 minutes per month for $99. And again, these are all U.S. prices. I'm not going to bother converting them.
Right, sure.
So $99 U.S. per month gives you 120 minutes. That one is shareable, so you could share those minutes with your spouse or a friend or your sister or whatever. Again, $25 a month. Add on, you can have the Horizon glasses. Otherwise, it's the Austria glasses you get. And then the next one is 300 minutes, and that one, oh dear, is it $199 per month?
I think that's right.
It's either $129 or it's $199 per month for 300 minutes. No, it's got to be the $199.
Yes, that's right. And that, previously they had that as their unlimited plan, unlimited minutes, and they've changed that. They dialed it back to 300, I believe, right?
That's right. And the other thing you can do, they have a top up. For $50 a month, you can buy 50 minutes of top up minutes. Now, those used to be able to top up on any of the plans. Now you can only top up on that 300-minute plan. So the thinking process there is that if you are on the 120-minute per month plan and you're noticing that you're about to run out and you still have this event or this project you want to do, then you can buy a top up. Well, now the only plan you can buy the top up for is a 300-minute plan. If you're a 120-minute plan subscriber, they expect that for the 1 month you will top up by buying a month at the 300-minute.
Right.
And then you can go back down to your 120 in the second month. So anyway, it's a bit convoluted, but the best thing people can do, if you're interested, call up a customer service agent and talk it over. They used to have 4 different plans. So they had a 100-minute plan, a 200-minute plan, 400, and then unlimited.
Right.
but they found that they weren't going to be able to sustain their business
Right.
at those kinds of prices. So that's why the adjustment to 300, 120 minute, and 30 minute plan.
Well, and being a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week service, having an unlimited plan, I could see a lot of people taking advantage of it, especially the people who travel a lot. That
There
would
were
really suck
a
up
few
resources.
people who did use lots and lots of minutes, but quite a few of us, didn't use that many. So I would have thought that it would balance itself out, but they're the only ones who have access to their books. So
Yeah.
we'll go with their opinion on the matter, I guess. And I was purchasing the unlimited plan, which was $329 US per month, but I was sharing it with 2 other people.
Oh, I see.
And so we were sharing the cost, and all 3 of us had access to unlimited, and I think that's what was freaking them out.
Yeah.
Right. That
Personally.
totally makes sense now. Yeah. I can see why they changed that.
So what they've done for those of us who were on those legacy plans, as long as I do it before the end of this month, I can step down to the previously higher plan, which was 400 minutes, although that's not available to new explorers. For those of us who have been on the books for a while, we can step down to that, I think. And what they've done with the unlimited plan, if I decide to stick with it, and I'm able to stick with it, even though nobody else can buy this plan now, I can stick with it, but I'm now limited to 700 minutes. I'll keep paying the same price, that $329 US, but my limit is 700 minutes. And as long as I stay on that plan, I can keep it. But if I ever step out of it, I can't step back in.
So definitely the key would be to shop around, especially for cell phone providers and data. I'm with Rogers, and on a regular plan, traditional, typical plan, $90 a month gives me only 2 gigabytes of data.
Yeah.
But check with Rogers. You might be able to get 2 additional. Blind folks or people with disabilities with some of the big carriers, like I'm paying for 3.5 gigabytes of data, shared data between my partner and I. And I heard that TELUS, I'm with TELUS Mobility, I heard that they and Bell and I think Rogers offer people with disabilities an additional 2 gigabytes for free because of all the GPS and all the navigation we use. And so I called up TELUS and I asked about it, and they quickly topped me up to 5.5 gigs at no more cost.
Yeah, I actually called Rogers on that as well, because they say that on their website too, under their accessibility stuff. And because I'm already on a loyalty plan, they won't do it. So
you should ask for a manager.
I have. I've got a year left on my contract, and I'm ditching Rogers. But
yeah. And so for any of us who need a little extra top up, just check with your provider, see if you can get those additional 2 gigs at no extra cost.
Well, there's other companies
and
too.
also, like I'm with Shaw Cable, and so I have a lot of these Shaw free Wi-Fi spots all over the community.
Right.
So as long as I'm connected to one of those, I can make an Aira call on my phone using that.
Using Wi-Fi. It doesn't cost you a thing.
Yeah. And and think about the plans and how you're going to use it too if you're going to experiment with this. Because when I walk from the bus onto a BC ferry, that's a 30-minute call going on, and it's about a 30-minute call coming off. So I'm going to use it just going to Vancouver. I'm going to use an hour of call time.
Right. Sure.
So 30 minutes. If you buy the introductory plan at $29 a month for 30 minutes, boy, 30 minutes goes pretty quickly.
Yeah,
just
I
doing
can
my
imagine.
expenses is 10 to 15 minutes when I'm doing that. I came out of the Civic Center here in Parksville once. This is a place I've gone to many times, but always either with Lions members or I go there with Brenda. I'm always going there with a sighted person. But this particular day, I just got dropped off there, and coming out, I didn't have a clue how to get from the doors of the Civic Center out to the street. I could hear the traffic over there, but I had to navigate a parking lot to get there. And I had never done it before without sighted assistance, and usually to get into a motor vehicle. This day, I just called up an agent and said, okay, here I am. I'm trying to get to that street over there so that I can walk home. And it was a 3-minute call to get that agent to navigate me through that parking lot without scratching any fenders. And right out to the sidewalk, and away I went. So there's lots of ways, but we have to just be confident that it works, and that they're always available 24/7.
It definitely sounds like it's a very valuable service, for what you're using it for, and for others that we keep hearing news stories about as well. It's changing their lives.
It is, and we don't have any access zones in Canada as yet.
Right.
But in the U.S., there's
right.
all kinds of places where you can use this
Airports
for free.
Yeah,
you're not using your minute.
That's right. A lot of airports. I know the Wegmans
Walgreens
chain.
Yeah.
A lot of grocery stores are sort of jumping on board.
One of the football stadiums recently joined up.
And honestly,
Exactly.
it makes perfect sense, right? As a business, that's how you can attract a whole new demographic to your business by offering this for free. So
Sure. And any of the blind folks who might be listening to this podcast, download the app. It's free. And if you have occasion to travel through any of these airports in the U.S. or attend any of these, Wegmans or Walgreens or any of these Lighthouse Incorporated, I think several of their locations are access zones as well. You don't even have to be a subscriber to use that access zone. You just have to download the app. When you get into SeaTac Airport, just call up using one of these access zones, and you're using SeaTac's minute. So you don't even have to be a subscriber for some of these specialty things. If you're looking for work and you need help checking the want ad, they've got a free program for people, employment related supports. If you own your own business, there's a couple of companies. One of them is an accounting software company, QuickBooks. So if you own your own company and you need some sighted support to do a task, you can call up, where you're not using your minutes, you're using theirs.
wow.
If you're doing a demo, if you're showing Aira to a group of people, you can use 15 minutes for free. I think you have to be an explorer to do that, though. But anyway, look on their website, aira.io, and have a look at all the plans and all the free access zones that are available and that kind of thing. So there's lots of ways for people to test this out if they want.
Yeah, I have to give Aira that. The company of itself, they've just done brilliant marketing over the past year to really get a lot of traction under the product and get it into a lot of people's hands, and getting a lot of these companies on board with providing these access points. They really know what they're doing, and and I think Ryan's absolutely right. You guys are right on point that it is a really incredibly powerful and valuable service. I just think it's kind of unfortunate that just built into the nature of how powerful the service is this price point that's just going to be a bit of a problem for some people. But that's that's sort of the double-edged sword that assistive technology is that it can be incredibly powerful, but it can also be incredibly expensive as a result. So, but
sure, it's all about the priorities we set in our own lives, isn't it?
Sure, absolutely.
Who said because I'm blind, I should be sitting around waiting for the right opportunities if I've got the funds to purchase.
Sure.
The resources I need. The other thing too is, they've recently hired Jonathan Molson, who's very well known in the blind community, as VP of Australasia. Oh, I can't even
Australasia.
pronounce it. Yeah, Australasia. So what do you guys think about that as a step forward, backward, sidestep? What do you guys think?
No, I think that's definitely a step forward. Adding Jonathan to any project is going to be a plus.
Yeah. No, he's been in the industry a long time. He's got a reputation that, as far as I'm concerned, is, far and above, many others in the industry, and he's well respected. He is, in some ways, a voice of the blind.
Mm-hmm. And I think he will certainly help them step up the game. And I think we're already seeing, I don't know if we can attribute it all to Jonathan, but certainly since Jonathan has come on, they're making some pretty significant changes in their processes. Trying to streamline things, make them better, make them more efficient for the the end user. So I think we're going to see some good things with Jonathan on the team.
Well, they're employing blind people as well. Greg Stilson, who used to be with Humanware, is working for Aira as well. So
Mike, who's the guy? The 9/11 there, the guy with the Thunderdog, wrote the book Thunderdog. Mike Hinkson.
Yes.
Right. Yep.
He works for them as well.
Yeah, that's right. No, we had him on the show, I think.
No.
Yes, we did.
Thunderdog?
No, well, we didn't have the dog on, but I'm pretty sure we had.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Maybe we did.
Anyways. So they're doing some good things, and I think, I'm just going to stick with it a while as long as I can afford it. In my case, my employer picks up a part of the tab. I'm picking up part of the tab. I've got a couple of people on sharing my minutes with me. So I found a way to make it affordable. But now with the new price structure, those opportunities are gone. So 300 minutes is the best you can do, and then $50 top up. The more that we advocate for ourselves in the blind community to get more companies to put in more of these access zones.
Sure.
I'm certainly dying to see BC Ferries do it with all their terminals.
Yeah.
I know 3 other blind people who avoid traveling on their own because it's such a freaky place to do. It's such long walks to get to anywhere, and convoluted little hallways, and so you make that an access zone, and I can point to 3 people who will start to use the ferries a lot more independently.
Well, I think I get the sense that really they're just really starting to build a bit of traction here in Canada. I think they still have a ways to go, but I think that once they do get that traction, I think that hopefully we will start seeing some Canadian companies and agencies, etc., jumping on board and grabbing these or providing these access points as well. But I think that it just needs a little bit of time in the oven before they're ready for that.
And I've chatted with their salespeople too, you guys, and I've said, so how can we make this happen here in Canada? And if we can identify a company or a corporation that we would like them to approach, then by all means give them that info. But also we, as blind consumers, we need to make the call. Like, the request for it needs to come from both ends. We need to band together as blind Canadians and ask for this service to be provided by some of these corporations and, drugstores and grocery chains and all the rest of it.
Right.
Why don't we give a little plug to GTT?
Get Together with Technology. It's the most fabulous peer mentoring opportunity available in Canada, isn't it?
Wow.
I'm with you.
Absolutely.
I think so.
So the Canadian Council of the Blind, we offer a couple of sort of new programs across Canada. One, of course, is the Get Together with Technology program. The other one is health and fitness. And, there are a couple of sort of new ways to engage blind Canadians so that we can help each other and support each other as we determine, what technology do I need to get this goal achieved? And once I buy this $1,000 piece of something, how the heck do I learn how to use it? And so Get Together with Technology, we just provide face-to-face opportunities for people to come together in many communities across Canada to just help each other out. Listen to a presentation on technology, ask questions and just learn. The very first GTT meeting I went to, I was frustrated. And I said to the gang that was gathered, I said, on my iPhone, every time I go to forward an email message, I hate that I can't remove all of that junk at the top, all that header info. And one of the young fellas in there said, oh my God, Albert, you don't know that you can delete. So he quickly, in about 3 minutes, coached me on moving my cursor to the top of the text I wanted to keep, and then just double tap and hold on the delete button, and it erases everything above it. And I thought, oh my God, how long have I been frustrated with this little task? And it was that easy to figure it out. So that's the power of bringing a bunch of blind folks into the room, other than, things like flush toilet apps that we might talk about. There's some really important stuff that we'll do as well.
And
that's GTT.
And where can people find out if there's a GTT meeting in their area?
I try and post all of the meeting invitations that I get my hands on our blog site, which is gttprogram.blog. GTT program smushedtogether.blog, and I post summary notes whenever we get them from the folks who do the meetings. We'll put up as many summary notes as we can on what was discussed that particular meeting, but we definitely put the invitations up there. And we also have a national conference call that we do once a month for those who don't live in a city where there's a GTT meeting. We have a GTT support email distribution list on groups.io. It's called GTT support at groups.io. There we encourage people to just come together and chat, talk about, ask the questions. If you found some really cool, funky thing that you want to share with the gang, go ahead, share it on there. Let's have a discussion about what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I've been on a couple of the national conference calls, and there was one I was on where a gentleman was talking about his self-driving lawnmower.
Oh yeah, those electric. What do you call those? Self-driving.
That sounds like a bad idea.
It's not a remote control lawn because it just does its own thing. It wanders all over the yard.
Just like a Roomba.
That's a terrible idea.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
We should not build AI into anything with rotating blades.
Oh no, this thing's very safe. If you're standing in the yard, it'll come up against your foot and stop.
Yeah.
Until it gets homicidal on you.
And the thing about a device like that, the panel on the actual lawnmower is not accessible.
Right.
But the app is.
Yeah.
The smartphone app is largely accessible. So,
and if not, you could use your Aira minutes and call up and say, "What's my screen on my lawnmower say?"
Yeah,
exactly. It says "Die, human, die." That's what it says. Exterminate.
She's going to say, "Wait a minute, is that your neighbor carrying your lawnmower down the road?"
Yeah, I think Rob's a little scared about this whole AI world we're about to enter into.
Ryan, I'm scared of everything.
He's scared of VR, AI. Yeah.
Pandemics, it's forest fires, climate change,
vaccination,
common cold,
the earthquake that's coming.
Yeah,
Yellowstone National Park's about to explode with a super volcano.
That's right.
You've got to go read that book called Cascadia's Fault. If you're not freaked out enough, just go read that book.
All right, well, I'm gonna have to go put together a new earthquake kit after all this. Listen.
Rob, we didn't mean to scare you today,
Rob. Well, hey, listen. Thanks so much for joining us and chatting about Aira. We've been waiting a while to actually talk to somebody who's been on the ground using it, and it's sounds like it's just as an amazing service as we kind of thought. So,
game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, listen, we'll also be sure to provide any links to the Aira website where people can look up what's available in the area and all the subscription plans as well. And
sounds good.
All right. Thanks again, Albert.
I thank you for this opportunity, guys.
Thank you, Albert.
All right, let's chat again.
All right, you bet. Bye.
All right, take care. Well, that was interesting. Talking to somebody who's actually using it. It doesn't sound like the marketing pieces that we have been seeing, have been that far out of the park. It sounds like it's just as revolutionary as they make it out to be. So
yeah, and your mileage will vary. We do have to say there have been some connectivity issues with people, and that could just be the areas they live in.
You're going to have that, right? No matter what.
Exactly.
Well, any technology that's based on cellular or Wi-Fi services, sooner or later going to have a connection issue. I mean, look at what happened in our interview with Albert there. Partway through, the internet decided it was going to go hokey, and so for a couple of minutes, we couldn't hear him.
But really, I think the big hurdle right now, at least here in Canada, I again is the bandwidth.
Yeah.
If you're looking at $1 a minute for the subscription itself, and then you're looking at I'm going to say most people are on data plans of around a gig.
But
do you think that's reasonable?
Yes. Yeah, unless you're, Freedom Mobile has, I think, 5 and 10 and 25 gig plans you can get for, the same price, if not less, than the big three companies. But like Albert was saying, Shaw has all these Wi-Fi hotspots all over the place. So if you're using Wi-Fi, it's not costing you anything except your subscription cost.
Yep.
Right. So I mean, I guess you have to be careful about that, because that can really spiral out of control in terms of cost, because you're paying for the subscription, and you've also got to keep an eye on your data caps. So, I mean, that's really the only downside I can see to this. I think it's it's an incredible service, but for somebody who is on a fixed income or, it's a tough.
Well, it's like priorities. Like Albert said, how many of us who are blind have Netflix subscriptions? How many of us that are blind have, cell phone plans? How many of us? It's all priorities. What's important to you and how important is it? Right?
Yeah.
If you're a sighted person, you've probably got a car. And you make that a priority. It's a priority purchase. You have to have a car to get from A to B.
Sure.
So,
Yes, indeedy.
and again, I think, like he was saying, if the 30-minute plan might get your foot, get your toe dipped in the water, get you a brief experience with it, but that's not going to carry you very far.
Yeah, and that's
30
that's my
minutes would get
concern,
eaten
though,
up so
because
quickly.
$30 a month is a big expense.
US, yep.
That would be
about 40.
40.
Yeah. 40 and a bit.
And if you're on a 30-minute plan and that doesn't even really start to cut it in terms of what you need it for, it could be a tough sell for some people. So hopefully maybe what they can, eventually do is they can figure out a way to make that price point a bit more appealing to people. And I think the way to do that would be to offer up a pay-as-you-go plan.
Or like you said, if you're using it at home, use the Be My Eyes app, because that's not costing you anything.
That's right.
If you're going to be out and about and you want some, trained agent to be able to tell you the menu on the Starbucks board, or, whatever it is, then go with the Aira service and use some of your minutes.
Yeah. You know what? I think that's a really good point. I think that's really probably where the sweet spot would be for somebody who is visually impaired, is sign up for the 30-minute plan, the base plan, and use it sparingly, and then use something like Be My Eyes. That's a free service that again, you're not going to get quite the quality perhaps, but it would serve a purpose if you're at home or if you're in a situation that it.
And Albert's review that we're going to link to, I've listened to it and it's very good. He does a live call to both Be My Eyes and to Aira, and you get an idea of how well each of them work. And I highly recommend people take a listen to it, because it does give you the experience.
But the big important thing is just to get the word out there that these things are out there and they exist, and they're incredibly powerful tools. So
I got cans in my fridge over there. I don't know which are iced tea, which are beer.
You didn't even know that your tarantula tequila was sitting outside the fridge.
Because you guys are sighted and never put anything back.
No, that was...
Seriously.
Don't pawn that off on us. It's
My bad.
How many times have you left a cup of coffee on my table?
Once.
Uh-huh.
Maybe twice.
But you did it. And who almost knocked it over? The blind guy. See? I could have used Be My Eyes.
I think we better wrap this thing up. It's getting early.
It's Monday. That's right.
All right. Hey, Ryan.
Rob.
Where can people find us?
atbanter.com.
They can also drop us an email if they so desire, atbanterpodcast@gmail.com. And speaking of which, let's talk a little bit about a new segment that we're going to try to do.
A new segment.
We're going to do a new segment?
Yeah, we're going to do new. Listen, I want to try a segment where we answer people's questions.
All right.
Anything AT related. You want to talk about a new technology. You want us to discuss a new technology. You want to ask a question about something. Hey, look, even if you have a technical question about...
How do I pair a braille display with my screen reader?
Or whatever, anything. Accessibility.
How do I increase the magnification on my CCTV? How do I turn on my Victor player?
That's right.
Why are the bottoms of Grandma's arms so droopy?
How do I cook a turkey?
At this point, we're desperate. We'll take anything. We can answer all of those questions. So drop us a line, ask a question, and chances are you'll get it read on the air, and we'll do our best to answer it.
Or we'll just get Google to answer it.
No, we're not going to get Google to answer it.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. In Australia, when you flush a toilet, does the water flow the other way than it does in North America?
Yeah, it does.
Does it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it does.
Does it?
Yeah.
All right, see.
See, boom.
I learned something.
Boom.
See? These guys are knowledgeable. We can help you.
That's right. Well, I'm glad we finished on the theme of...
Toilets.
Where else can people find AT Banter? Nobody?
Oh, I'm
Steve's been pretty quiet.
Here we are.
sorry.
We're so knowledgeable.
You shifted gear, you freak. Well, you can find AT Banter on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So go there right now. Email us.
Leave us a comment.
Rate us on iTunes.
Send us a tweet.
Get to work. All right, that's going to about do it for us this week. Big thanks to Albert Ruel for joining us today, and see everybody next week.
This podcast has been brought to you by Canadian Assistive Technology, providing low vision and blindness solutions across Canada. Find us online at www.canasstech.com. That's CANASSTECH.com. Or call us toll-free at 1-844-795-8324. For all your assistive technology servicing needs, call Chaos Technical Services at 778-847-6840 or find them online at chaostechnicalservices.com. Music provided by bensound.com.
Whoa, look at that. Master of the one take.